He only wanted to sign the papers and forget the past, until she walked in with a double stroller and two little eyes that changed everything. If you like stories like this, be sure to subscribe to this channel. We post every day. Continuing. The air conditioning on the 42nd floor hummed softly, but Raphael Miller couldn't concentrate on the familiar sound. Sitting behind the solid mahogany desk, with a panoramic view of Fifth Avenue, he impatiently drummed his fingers on the divorce papers. 2 years, 2 damned years for something that should have been resolved in 6 months. He glanced at the Patek Philippe watch on his wrist. 2:45. Marina was late, as always. Typical of her, he thought with irritation, not to respect even a legal appointment that would definitively end the biggest mistake of his life. Raphael Miller was known in the financial market as the man who transformed bankrupt companies into profitable empires. At 35, he commanded the Miller and Associates Group, a holding company that controlled everything from mining companies to construction firms. Son of Oswald Miller, one of the most powerful men in American agribusiness, Raphael had grown up learning that emotions were luxuries that businessmen couldn't afford. His marriage to Marina Sterling had been his only concession to what he called sentimental weakness. She was an environmental engineer, a Columbia University graduate, and had met Raphael during a consultancy for one of his companies. Intelligent, determined, with brown eyes that seemed to see beyond appearances. For a moment he believed he could have both, success and love. He was mistaken. Marina wanted children. She spoke of building a family, of giving meaning to life beyond the numbers on spreadsheets. Raphael saw this as a dangerous distraction, a threat to the focus. That kept him at the top. The argument that had destroyed their marriage still echoed in his memory. You choose, Raphael. It's either the company or it's us. I can't compete with spreadsheets anymore. He chose the company. The divorce was surgical. Raphael changed all phone numbers, blocked Marina's contacts on social media, instructed building security not to allow her visits. He wanted a clean break, no traces, no possibility of return. Marina signed the papers in silence and disappeared from his life as if she had never existed. Now finally she would return to sign the final documentation. The division of assets had been generous. Raphael was not petty, just practical. Marina would keep the apartment on the Upper East Side and a sufficient amount to restart her life. He would be free to focus on what really mattered, expanding business abroad. His secretary intercommed, "Mr. Miller, Ms. Sterling has arrived." "Send her in," he replied, straightening his Hermes tie. The door opened and Raphael looked up from the documents, prepared for a professional and depersonalized encounter. But what he saw made him forget how to breathe. Marina was there, yes, with her brown hair shorter than before, wearing a simple but elegant navy blue dress. But she wasn't alone. She was pushing a double stroller with 2 children who couldn't be more than 2 years old. Raphael's world stopped. The children had green eyes, exactly like his, dark curly hair like Marina's, but the shape of their faces, their noses, the way they observed everything with intense curiosity. It was like looking at photographs of himself from childhood. "Hi, Raphael," Marina said, her voice firm but laden with an emotion he couldn't decipher. He didn't answer. He couldn't take his eyes off the little ones, a boy and a girl, both observing the luxurious office with innocent fascination. The boy held a battered toy car. The girl sucked her thumb, curled up in the stroller. "Sorry I'm late," Marina continued, closing the door behind her. "Traffic was terrible on the Belt Parkway and they got carsick." Who are they?" Raphael managed to ask, his voice hoarse. Marina took a deep breath before answering. "Michael and Sophia, your children." The silence that followed seemed solid, heavy. Raphael sat heavily in his chair, calculating mentally. 2 years and 3 months since the definitive separation. If the children were 2 years old. "You were pregnant," he whispered, more to himself than to her. 3 weeks pregnant when you changed your phone numbers and blocked me," Marina confirmed, her voice gaining a coldness he had never heard before. "I tried to contact you 17 times, Raphael, 17. I sent messages, emails, tried to speak with your secretary. I even came in person twice, but security had orders to prevent me from coming up. Raphael vaguely remembered Martha, his secretary, mentioning something about inconvenient calls from his ex-wife. He had ordered everything blocked. He wanted silence. He wanted forgetfulness. "Why didn't you insist more?" he asked, knowing it was a stupid question the moment it left his mouth. Marina laughed, but there was no humor in the laugh. "Insist more? Raphael, I had a high-risk pregnancy. I was on absolute bed rest for 2 months. Michael and Sophia were born prematurely. They spent a month in the neonatal ICU. I spent 18 hours a day at the hospital, sleeping in an uncomfortable armchair, with no one to share the fear of losing them. You wanted silence? You got too much silence." The words hit Raphael like punches to the stomach. He tried to imagine Marina alone in a hospital, carrying his children, going through all that without support. The image bothered him in a way he didn't expect. "Mama, who is that man?" Sophia, the girl, asked, pointing at Raphael with her little finger. Marina crouched down to her height. "Remember Mommy told you about Daddy? That's him." The girl studied Raphael for a long moment, then turned to her brother. "Michael, it's Daddy." The boy dropped his toy car and stared intently at Raphael. "Real Daddy?" Something broke inside Raphael's chest, a feeling he couldn't name, as if a wall he didn't know existed had suddenly crumbled. These children, his children, had existed for 2 years without his knowledge. They had first words, first steps, first laughs, and he had missed it all. Can I come closer?" he asked. His voice choked. Marina hesitated, then nodded. Raphael approached slowly, as if moving through a dream. He knelt before the double stroller, getting down to the children's eye level. "Hi," he said softly. "Hi, Daddy," Michael replied, extending his tiny hand to touch Raphael's face. Raphael closed his eyes when he felt the small, warm fingers on his cheek. When he opened them again, he found Marina's eyes watching the scene with an indecipherable expression. "Do they know who I am?" he asked. "I show them pictures of you," Marina admitted. "I didn't want them to grow up without knowing their father, even if you had chosen not to know them." The implicit accusation hurt more than any business criticism he had ever received. Raphael had always prided himself on his quick and firm decisions, but for the first time in his life he questioned whether he had made the right one. "Marina, I didn't. No, you didn't want to know," she corrected him, her tone harsh. "There's a difference." Raphael swallowed hard. She was right, and they both knew it. He had purposely closed all doors, convinced he was protecting his professional life from emotional distractions. "What do you want from me now?" he asked, trying to regain some control of the situation. "Nothing," Marina replied without hesitation. "I only came for you to sign the divorce papers, and for Michael and Sophia to meet their father at least once. They asked questions, and I didn't want to lie anymore about you being traveling for work constantly. And then we go home. I have a life in New York, Raphael. A job, friends, a routine. They're happy. We don't need anything from you besides your signature on these documents." Raphael looked again at the children. Michael was trying to get out of the stroller, clearly bored with the adult conversation. Sophia played with a colorful cloth book, making soft sounds to herself. How old are they exactly? 2 years and 3 months. And what are they like? What do they like to do? Marina seemed surprised by the questions. Michael is obsessed with cars and planes. Sophia loves books and music. Both are stubborn like their father, she added with a half smile. Can I hold them?" The question seemed to catch Marina off guard. She watched Raphael for a moment, then nodded slowly. "If they want to." Raphael extended his hands to Michael, who immediately leaned forward, wanting to get out of the stroller. Raphael carefully lifted him, surprised by the actual weight of a child. Michael examined him closely, then smiled. "You're tall, Daddy." "I am," Raphael replied, his voice faltering slightly. Sophia stretched out her little arms too, and Raphael found himself holding both children for the first time. They smelled of baby shampoo and cookies, and moved with the restless energy of small children. Michael began to play with Raphael's tie, while Sophia touched the buttons of his suit. They are perfect, Raphael murmured. They are, Marina agreed, but her voice was distant. The intercom rang, breaking the moment. Mr. Miller, you have a board meeting in 15 minutes. Raphael looked at the children in his arms, then at Marina, then at the divorce documents scattered on the table. For the first time in his life, a board meeting seemed completely irrelevant. Cancel all meetings for today, he said into the intercom. Sir? All of them. Reschedule for tomorrow. There was a surprised pause on the other side. But sir, you never cancel board meetings. Today I do, and I don't want to be interrupted. Raphael hung up the intercom and looked at Marina, who seemed shocked. You cancelled board meetings because of us? Yes. Raphael, you never... I know what I never did, Marina. I'm trying to understand what I should have done. She studied him for a long moment as if seeing a stranger. You don't have to do this out of guilt. I didn't come here to emotionally blackmail you. What if I want to get to know them? What if I want to try? Try what, exactly? Raphael took a deep breath. Try to be the father I should have been from the beginning. Marina shook her head slowly. Raphael, you don't understand. It's not just showing up when it's convenient and being a father. They wake up crying in the middle of the night when they have nightmares. They get sick and you have to miss work. They throw tantrums at the supermarket and everyone stares. Being a father isn't a business project you can manage remotely. I know. Do you really know? Because 2 years ago you told me that children were unnecessary obstacles to professional excellence. Your exact words. Raphael felt physical shame remembering that discussion. At the time, it seemed like a rational analysis. Now, with Michael playing with his tie and Sophia trying to pull his glasses, it sounded like the cruelest thing he had ever said. I was wrong. You were, Marina agreed without hesitation, and it hurt me a lot. But it's not just saying, you were wrong, Raphael. It's completely changing who you are, and I don't believe you're capable of that. The office phone rang. Raphael ignored it. It rang again and again. Answer it, Marina said. It must be important. Raphael reluctantly handed the children back to Marina and answered, What is it? Raphael? It was his father's voice, Oswald Miller. Martha told me you cancelled the board meeting. I'm coming up. Dad, now is not a good time. I'll be there in 2 minutes. The call ended. Raphael looked at Marina with panic. My father is coming up. He doesn't know anything about the grandchildren he has, Marina completed, raising an eyebrow. Before Raphael could answer, the door opened unceremoniously, and Oswald Miller entered the office. At 62, he was still an imposing man, with perfectly combed grey hair and a suit that cost more than a popular car. He stopped abruptly when he saw Marina and the children. What's going on here? He asked, his voice controlled, but with an underlying tension. Raphael approached his father. Dad, these are Michael and Sophia, my children. Oswald Miller was known for maintaining his composure in any situation. He had negotiated with corrupt politicians, faced federal investigations, survived 3 economic crises without losing his calm. But at that moment, he stood completely still, staring intently at the 2 children. Your children, he repeated slowly. Yes. Oswald looked from Raphael to Marina, then back to the children. Michael, oblivious to the tension in the air, waved at the older man. Hi, Grandpa. The word hit Oswald like a shot. His eyes welled up, something Raphael had never seen in his life. Grandpa, Michael repeated, smiling. Oswald approached slowly as if hypnotized. He knelt before the stroller, getting down to the children's height. You are my grandchildren? Yes, Sophia replied cheerfully. Mommy said we were going to meet Grandpa too. Oswald extended a trembling hand to touch Sophia's face. When she held his finger with her tiny hand, the man who had built an empire began to cry. My God, he murmured, my God, they're beautiful. Raphael watched, shocked, as his father, the man who had always taught him that emotional displays were signs of weakness, cried openly before 2 grandchildren he didn't even know existed. How long? Oswald asked Raphael, without taking his eyes off the children. 2 years and 3 months? 2 years? Oswald's voice was almost a whisper. 2 years without knowing I had grandchildren? I didn't know either, Dad. Oswald turned to Raphael with an expression he had never seen. What do you mean you didn't know? They were your children. Marina tried to tell me, but I had blocked all contacts. You did what? The weight of his father's judgment was like a physical blow. Raphael had spent his entire life trying to impress Oswald Miller, seeking his approval, following his teachings on success and focus. Now he saw pure disappointment in the eyes of the man who had always been his hero. Dad, at the time I thought— You didn't think, Oswald cut him off, his voice harsh. You acted like a cowardly idiot. Marina shifted uncomfortably. Mr. Miller, perhaps it's best we discuss this later. No, Oswald said, still kneeling before the children. We're going to discuss this now. Raphael, do you have any idea what you lost? What your cowardice cost us? Dad, 2 years. 2 years of first steps, first words, first smiles. 2 children who grew up without a father, without a grandfather, because you decided it was more important to keep your life organized. Oswald stood up slowly, his joints cracking. He looked at Raphael with a mixture of anger and disillusionment that cut deeper than any professional criticism. I failed you, he said finally. What? I raised you to be successful, but I failed to raise a man. A real man doesn't abandon his family. A real man doesn't run from responsibility. Raphael felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. His father's approval had always been his moral compass, and now it was being questioned in the most fundamental way possible. Mr. Miller, Marina gently interjected, perhaps it's better if we talk more calmly. Marina, Oswald said, turning to her for the first time since he had entered. Did you raise these children alone? Yes, sir. And you work? I'm an independent environmental consultant. 2 years raising twins alone and maintaining a career. Oswald shook his head in admiration. You're more of a man than my son. The phrase hit Raphael like a slap. Marina blushed slightly. Mr. Miller, we don't need— Yes, we do. Oswald approached Raphael. You're going to fix this. How? I don't know. But you will. Because these children are Millers, and we don't abandon family. Michael, who had observed the intense conversation between the adults with growing fascination, slipped out of the stroller and ran to Raphael. He grabbed his leg and looked up. Daddy, why is everyone sad? Raphael looked down at his son, whom he barely knew but who treated him with natural affection, then at Sophia, who was reaching out her little arms to him from the stroller, then at Marina, who watched the whole scene with a guarded expression, and finally at his father, who stared at him with expectation and disappointment. For the first time in his life, Raphael Miller had no plan. There were no spreadsheets that could calculate the damage he had caused, or strategies that could recover lost time. There was only a simple and devastating truth. He had lost 2 years of his children's lives out of pure cowardice, and now he needed to find out if there was still time to fix everything. No one is sad, Michael, he said, picking the boy up. Daddy is just learning to be a daddy. You don't know how to be a daddy? Michael asked with innocent curiosity. No, Raphael admitted. The honesty painful. But I want to learn. Marina watched him carefully, looking for signs of sincerity or manipulation. After a long moment, she said, Learning to be a father isn't like learning to run a company, Raphael. There are no schedules or goals. There's only presence, constancy, and unconditional love. I know. Do you really know? Because it's going to hurt. It's going to be inconvenient. It's going to disrupt meetings, trips, strategies. It's going to completely change your life. Raphael looked at Michael in his arms, then at Sophia, who had fallen asleep in the stroller after the day's excitement. 2 small children who were part of him, who carried his DNA and his surname, but who were complete strangers. Then maybe it's time for my life to change, he said. 3 weeks had passed since that afternoon that had changed everything. Raphael looked out the car window as the driver navigated the dense traffic of Lower Manhattan, heading towards Marina's apartment on the Upper East Side. It was Saturday morning, and he was as nervous as he hadn't been since his first presentation to investors. In his hand, he held a book on child development that he had bought at a specialized bookstore. In recent weeks, he had read everything he could find on fatherhood, twin development, how to deal with 2-year-olds. He felt like he was studying for the most important exam of his life, only there was no second chance if he failed. After that conversation in the office, Marina had reluctantly agreed to let him visit Michael and Sophia on weekends. 2 hours on Saturdays, she had said. No more than that for now, and I'll be present the whole time. Raphael had accepted the conditions without question. He knew he had no right to demand more. The apartment was in an elegant but not ostentatious building on Park Avenue. Raphael had bought the property for Marina as part of the divorce settlement, but had never visited it. When the door opened, he was surprised by the sense of home the place conveyed. The walls were painted in soft shades of blue and beige. There were plants everywhere, photographs of the children in simple frames, books stacked on every available surface. It was the complete opposite of his minimalist apartment in Tribeca, all black, white, and steel. "Daddy!" Michael ran to him before Marina even finished opening the door. The emotional impact of being called Daddy still caught him off guard every time. Raphael knelt to get down to the boy's height. "Hi, champ. How are you?" "Good. Mommy made pancakes." Sophia appeared behind her brother, shyer but smiling. "Hi, Daddy." "Hi, Princess." Raphael picked her up, observing how she was more reserved than Michael, more observant. Marina watched them from the kitchen doorway, wearing a simple t-shirt and jeans. She was different from how he remembered her during their marriage, more mature, more confident. Motherhood had forged a strength in her that he didn't recall. "Want coffee?" she offered. "Yes, thank you." Raphael followed her to the kitchen, still carrying Sophia. The atmosphere was cozy, with children's drawings taped to the refrigerator and colorful dishes. Very different from his black granite kitchen that he rarely used. "How was your week?" Marina asked, serving the coffee. "Different," Raphael admitted. "I spent a lot of time thinking." "About what?" "About how to be a good father to them. I read some books." Marina raised an eyebrow. "You read books about fatherhood?" "Several. And I did some research on child development, age-appropriate activities, nutrition." For the first time since he had reappeared in their lives, Marina genuinely smiled. Raphael Miller studying to be a father. "I never thought I'd see that." "I'm taking it seriously, Marina." "I see that." She watched Sophia playing with the buttons on his shirt. "And how's work? I imagine it's not easy to juggle." Raphael hesitated. The truth was that the last few weeks had been chaotic. He had missed 2 important meetings to research fatherhood online. He had delegated more responsibilities to the board. His partners were starting to ask questions. "I'm adapting," he said finally. "Daddy, come." "Play." Michael appeared in the kitchen holding a plastic fire truck. "Of course." Raphael handed Sophia to Marina and followed Michael to the living room. What followed was one of the most disconcerting mornings of Raphael's life. He tried to play with the cars but clearly didn't know how. Michael explained to him with the patience of a child accustomed to teaching adults, "No, Daddy, the fire truck goes wee-woo, not vroom. The police car goes vroom." Sophia wanted him to read a book about a princess and a dragon, but when Raphael tried to speed up the story, she corrected him. "You can't skip the forest part, Daddy, it's important." Marina watched everything from the kitchen, and Raphael knew he was being evaluated. Each interaction was a test he wasn't sure he was passing. After an hour, he was exhausted in a way he had never experienced. Negotiating multi-million-dollar contracts seemed simple compared to holding the attention of 2 two-year-olds. "Why are you sweating, Daddy?" Sophia asked with curiosity. Raphael laughed, wiping his forehead. "Playing is more tiring than I imagined." "But it's fun," Michael declared, climbing onto the sofa to get higher. "It is," Raphael agreed, and realized it was true. It was exhausting, but there was also something deeply gratifying in seeing the children's genuine smiles when he managed to get a game right. Raphael's phone rang. It was Martha, his secretary. "Mr. Miller, Mr. Tanaka arrived early for Monday's meeting. He's asking if you can move it up to this afternoon." Raphael looked at Michael and Sophia, who had started building a tower with colorful blocks. "No, Martha. Reschedule it for Tuesday." "But sir, he's the Japanese investor. He's only in New York until Monday." "Then reschedule it for Monday. I can't today." He hung up and found Marina watching him with an intrigued expression. "You just dismissed an international investor because of the children." "Yes." "Raphael, you would never do that before." "Before I didn't have children." Marina studied his face, looking for signs of resentment or forced obligation. "And how do you feel about it?" Raphael considered the question. A few months ago, losing a Japanese investor would have kept him awake for days. Now, watching Michael try to balance a block on top of the wobbling tower, it seemed irrelevant. "Good," he admitted, surprised by his own answer. "I feel good." The moment was interrupted when the block tower collapsed, making Michael cry in frustration. Raphael instinctively stood up to comfort him, but Marina was faster. "Hey, champ, let's build an even bigger tower," she said, kneeling beside her son. Raphael watched how she handled the situation, calm, affectionate, efficient. There was a naturalness in her movements that he envied. She knew exactly what to do, what to say, how to soothe. "You're an amazing mother," he said, when Michael stopped crying. Marina looked at him with surprise. "Thank you. How did you learn to do all this?" "Trial and error. Mostly. Many sleepless nights, a lot of panic, a few desperate calls to my mom." She smiled fondly at her children. "At first, I had no idea what I was doing. Michael cried non-stop. Sophia only slept if she was in my arms. I cried with them many times." "And you did it alone?" "I had no choice." The words carried an implicit accusation that hit Raphael in the chest. He imagined Marina alone, dealing with two premature babies, without support, without anyone to share the burden of responsibility. "Marina, I'm so sorry. I know you are." "No, you don't. Understand. I'm truly sorry. Not just for not being here, but for creating a situation where you felt forced to do everything alone." Marina stopped playing with the blocks and looked at him directly. "Raphael, regretting what you did won't change the past. The question is, what are you going to do now?" Before he could answer, the doorbell rang. Marina went to answer it and returned with an annoyed expression, accompanied by an elegant blonde woman Raphael immediately recognized, Letitia Campbell, his minority partner and commercial director. "Hi, Raphael," Letitia said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Sorry to interrupt, but we need to talk urgently." Raphael stood up, annoyed. "Letitia, it's Saturday." "I know, but it's about the business with the Japanese. You missed a very important meeting yesterday, and they're considering pulling out of the investment." Marina watched the exchange with a guarded expression. The children, sensing the tension, instinctively moved closer to her. "Letitia, now is not the time," Raphael said, trying to keep his voice low. "Raphael, you need to understand the gravity of the situation. You're jeopardizing a $50 million investment. The board is concerned." "The board can wait until Monday." Letitia looked at Marina and the children as if she had only just truly noticed their presence. "So it's true, you have children?" "I do." "And you're prioritizing this over business?" Raphael felt anger rising. "Letitia, if you came here to question my priorities—" "I came to question your professional sanity, Raphael. You've always been focused, decisive. Suddenly you're canceling meetings, missing important appointments, delegating responsibilities you always handled personally." Marina stood up, taking Michael and Sophia by the hands. "Let's go to the room to play for a bit, okay?" Raphael realized she was removing the children from the situation out. Love protective instinct. This annoyed him even more with Letitia. "That wasn't necessary," he said when Marina left. "They could have stayed." "Raphael, be realistic. You can't just completely change your professional life overnight because of two children you didn't even know until last month." "They're my children, Letitia." "They are strangers who share your DNA. You haven't had any emotional bond with them until now. You're acting out of guilt, not genuine paternal love." The words hit Raphael like a slap, partly because he recognized there might be some truth in them. Was he really acting out of guilt, or was something deeper happening? Even if that were true, he said slowly, it wouldn't change anything. They are my children, and I will learn to be a father. At the cost of the company you built? At the cost of the jobs of 300 people who depend on your decisions? Raphael looked in the direction of the room where Marina had taken the children. He could hear her soft voices talking to Michael and Sophia. It seemed so natural, so right. The company will survive, Letitia. Will it? Because yesterday I received 3 calls from important clients questioning your absence from meetings. And today Mr. Tanaka called me directly asking if you were indisposed or if there was a problem with management. Raphael felt the weight of familiar pressure. All his life he had balanced professional success and his father's approval. Now for the first time his priorities were in direct conflict with everyone's expectations around him. What are you suggesting? That you put things in perspective. You can be a present father without destroying everything you've built. Scheduled visits, generous support, quality education. There are ways to fulfill your responsibilities without becoming a full-time stay-at-home dad. Marina returned at that moment, clearly having heard part of the conversation. Excuse me, but I think it's better if you continue this discussion elsewhere. Letitia turned to her with a cold smile. Of course, it must be difficult to hear about the realities of the corporate world when you're accustomed to a more simple life. The implicit insult made Raphael step forward. Letitia, be careful. I'm being realistic, Raphael. Marina is an intelligent woman. I'm sure she understands that you have responsibilities that go beyond this domestic situation. Marina kept her voice calm, but Raphael noticed the tension in her shoulders. I perfectly understand Raphael's responsibilities, including those he has to his own children. Of course, and I'm sure that, as a sensible woman, you also understand that it's better for everyone, including the children, if Raphael maintains a stable and successful professional life. Letitia, Raphael said, his voice harsh, I think it's best if you leave. Raphael, I'm trying to help you not make a decision you'll regret. The only thing I regret is not having been present from the beginning, and that won't happen again. Letitia studied him for a moment, then nodded slowly. I understand. I hope you don't regret this choice. After she left, the apartment fell into a heavy silence. Marina sat on the sofa, looking tired. She's right about some things, Marina said finally. Like what? About you having responsibilities beyond the children. About the company you built. Raphael sat beside her. Marina, are you asking me to choose between my children and my work? No. I'm saying you need to find a balance that's sustainable in the long term. Because if you throw yourself headfirst into fatherhood now and then resent it, or if your professional life collapses and you blame the children for it, everyone loses. Raphael considered the words. Marina was being practical, as always. It was one of the things he had loved about her during their marriage, her ability to see situations clearly without being swayed solely by emotion. What if I can reconcile it? That would be great. But Raphael, you need to be honest with yourself about what you really want, and about what you can truly give. At that moment, Michael and Sophia ran back from the living room, Michael holding a drawing he had made. Daddy, look, I drew you. Raphael took the paper. It was a typical drawing by a 2-year-old, disorganized lines in various colors, but in the center there was a figure clearly taller than the other 3. It's me, Sophia, Mommy, and you, Michael explained proudly. Raphael looked at the drawing, his first work of art made by a child, and felt something rearrange within his chest. It wasn't guilt, it wasn't obligation. It was love, simple and direct as a child's drawing. It's the most beautiful drawing I've ever seen, champ, he said, and it was true. Can I make another one? Of course you can. As Michael ran to get more paper, Raphael looked at Marina. I want to be present, truly. Not out of guilt, not out of obligation, because they are my children and I love them. Marina studied his face for a long moment. And your company? Your partners? Your life as you built it? I'll have to find a new way to live. One that includes everything that's important. It's going to be difficult, Raphael. It's going to require sacrifices you've never made. I know. Sophia approached him with a book. Daddy, read story? Raphael picked her up. Of course, princess. As he opened the book, he looked at Marina over his daughter's head. There was something different in her gaze. Not total trust, not yet, but there was less skepticism, as if she was starting to believe that maybe he really could change. It was a beginning, a fragile and uncertain beginning, but it was a beginning, and Raphael was determined to prove that this time, finally, he wouldn't run away when things got tough. 2 months had passed since Raphael began his regular visits. What had started as 2 hours on Saturdays had naturally expanded. Now he showed up on Thursdays for dinner, took the children to Central Park on Sundays, and had even stayed with them when Marina had a work meeting that ran late. But the changes in his professional life were taking their toll. Raphael was in his office when Letitia entered without knocking, accompanied by 2 other partners, Ferdinand Sampson and Richard Morrison. The atmosphere was tense before a single word was spoken. "We need to talk," Letitia said, placing a tablet on the table. "These are the losses from the last 2 months. Raphael looked at the numbers, his stomach tightening. 3 important contracts had been lost to competitors. The Japanese investment had been cancelled. 2 corporate clients had questioned the continuation of long-term contracts. "Clients are noticing your absences, Raphael," Ferdinand said. "Yesterday, Miranda from the construction company asked me directly if you were indisposed or if there was a problem with the company's management." "There's no problem with management." "No?" Richard opened another report. "You've missed 7 meetings in the last 6 weeks. You've delegated strategic decisions you always made personally. And yesterday, when the mayor called personally to discuss the waterfront project, you asked to reschedule because you had to pick up the children from school." Raphael felt heat rising up his neck. They were sick. Marina had an important presentation and couldn't miss it. "Raphael," Letitia leaned across the table, "you're jeopardizing an empire we spent 15 years building. For 2 children you didn't even know 3 months ago. They're my children. They are 2 children who would have a comfortable life anyway, with or without your constant presence. But 300 employees depend on this company. Their families depend on the jobs you are risking." Raphael knew she was right about the numbers. The last 2 months had been a constant balance between work and fatherhood, and clearly something was failing. "What are you proposing?" "A restructuring," Ferdinand said. "You step away from day-to-day operations for a period. Letitia assumes the executive presidency temporarily. You retain the position of chairman of the board." "Are you trying to kick me out of my own company?" "We're trying to save it," Letitia replied, "and save you from a decision that will destroy everything you've built." Raphael stood up, walking to the window. Below, New York City pulsed with its usual chaotic energy. For 15 years, he had been an integral part of this machine of power and money. Now he felt as if he were watching from the outside. "I need time to think." "We don't have time, Raphael. The board meets tomorrow to vote on the proposal, with or without your consent." After they left, Raphael was alone in his office looking at the financial reports scattered on the table. His phone rang. It was Marina. "Hi," she said, her voice sounding tired. "Can you pick up Michael and Sophia from school today? My meeting ran late and—" "Of course," Raphael interrupted. "Is everything okay?" "Yes, just a difficult client. Thank you, Raphael. You've been saving my life these past few weeks." After she hung up, Raphael looked again at the numbers on the screen. His company was truly at risk, and for the first time since he had reconnected with his children, he wondered if he wasn't being selfish in trying to have it all. At the private school where Michael and Sophia studied in the Upper West Side, Raphael waited in the car line when his phone rang again. It was a number he didn't recognize. "Raphael Miller." "Yes, who is this?" "I'm Marcella Stone, a reporter for New York Chronicle magazine. I'm doing a story about you, and I'd like to ask some questions." Raphael immediately became alert. "About what specifically?" "About your recent discovery that you're a father, and how that has affected your company." Raphael's blood ran cold. "How did you find out?" I have reliable sources. Can I confirm that you discovered you had 2 children just 3 months ago, and that this has caused instability at Miller & Associates? Raphael hung up the phone immediately, but his hands were trembling. How had the press found out? And who had leaked the information? The answer came in the form of a call from Oswald Miller 20 minutes later, as Raphael was helping Michael and Sophia into the car. "Did you see the online article?" His father's voice was furious. "What article?" "The millionaire who discovered he's a father. How unexpected parenthood is rocking an empire. It just came out on the New York Chronicle portal." Raphael felt the world spin. "Dad, what exactly does it say?" "Read it yourself, and then explain to me how you allowed our family to become a media circus." Raphael drove in silence to Marina's apartment, the children chattering in the back seat about their day at school. When he arrived, Marina was already waiting at the door, her cell phone in hand and a worried expression. "Raphael, did you see?" "I did." She watched him put the children down, noticing the tension in his movements. "Are the children okay?" "They are. But we need to talk." Marina sent Michael and Sophia to play in their room and turned to Raphael. "How did this happen?" Raphael showed her his phone with the article open. The text was devastating. It detailed how he had abandoned a pregnant Marina, how he had rejected his children for years, and how his sudden change in behavior was causing corporate instability in his company. There was even an anonymous quote from a source close to the company saying that Raphael Miller has lost focus and is putting personal whims above professional responsibilities. "Someone from your company leaked this," Marina said after reading. "Yes. Letitia." Raphael nodded. "Probably. She has contacts in the press and was trying to pressure me about the priorities issue." Marina sat heavily on the sofa. "Raphael, this is going to affect the children." "How?" "Michael and Sophia go to a private school in the Upper West Side. The other families read these magazines. Soon everyone will know that their father is the millionaire who abandoned his children." Raphael hadn't thought of that. In his corporate world, media scandals were public relations problems to be managed. But now there were 2 innocent children who could be affected. "What do we do?" "I don't know," Marina admitted. "I've never dealt with this kind of exposure." Raphael's phone rang again. It was Martha, his secretary. "Mr. Miller, there are 15 journalists in the reception asking for an interview. And your schedule for tomorrow, all appointments have been cancelled by clients." Raphael hung up and looked at Marina. "It's getting worse." That night, after the children had gone to sleep, Raphael and Marina sat on the apartment balcony, each with a glass of wine, trying to process what was happening. "Do you regret it?" Marina asked suddenly. "Regret what?" "Trying to be present in their lives, changing your priorities." Raphael considered the question honestly. "No, even with all this chaos, I don't regret it." "Even knowing you might lose your company?" "Marina, 3 months ago I thought my company was the most important thing in my life. Now I know it's not." Marina studied him in the dark. "And if you have to choose between being a present father and maintaining your professional life, I shouldn't have to choose." "But what if you do?" Raphael took a sip of wine, thinking about the question. All his life he had been able to control variables, to find solutions to complex problems. But fatherhood had brought an unpredictability that his analytical mind couldn't process. "Then I choose them," he said finally. "I choose Michael and Sophia." Marina was silent for a long moment. "And what if they grow up knowing you lost everything because of them? How do you think that would make them feel?" It was a disturbing question Raphael hadn't considered. "Do you think they would feel guilty?" "I think children have an incredible capacity to blame themselves for adults' choices." Raphael stood up, walking to the balcony railing. New York City glittered below, a city that never slept, full of ambition and power. For 15 years, he had been a part of it, had helped build this machine of growth. "Maybe there's a third option," he said. "What?" "Maybe I can change how I work, not if I work." Marina joined him at the railing. "What do you mean?" "I've been thinking. My company has grown so much that maybe it's time to decentralize. Open regional offices, hire more executive directors, modernize processes. You'd delegate. I'd adapt, like you adapted when you found out you were pregnant with twins. Marina smiled for the first time that night. Raphael Miller talking about adaptation. Who would have thought? You changed my perspective on a lot of things. They stood in comfortable silence for a few minutes, watching the city. Then Marina said, Raphael, there's something I need to tell you. The tone of her voice made Raphael turn completely to her. What? Marina took a deep breath. I received a job offer in Vancouver. Raphael's world stopped. Canada? Yes, it's an international environmental consultancy. They offered me the position of regional director for Latin America. The salary is 3 times what I earn here. And the children? They would come with me, obviously. Raphael felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. For how long? The initial contract is for 5 years. 5 years. Raphael, I haven't accepted yet. I haven't even said I would accept, but you're considering it. Marina turned to face him directly. I am, because in the last 3 months, I've seen you genuinely try to be a good father, but I've also seen the chaos it brought to your life, and now with this media exposure. Marina, you can't take my children to another country. They're not just your children, Raphael. For 2 years, they were just my children. And I have to think about what's best for them in the long term. And you think growing up away from their father would be better? I think growing up in a stable situation would be better, without media scandals, without their father being forced to choose between them and his career, without all this pressure. Raphael felt genuine panic for the first time in his life. Marina, please, don't do this. Raphael, I don't want to do this, but I need to consider all options. How much time do I have? For what? To prove I can reconcile everything, to show I can be a present father without destroying my professional life, to convince you that we stay here. Marina watched him for a long moment. They gave me 2 weeks to respond. 2 weeks. Raphael had closed international deals in less time, but he had never tried to rebuild an entire life in 14 days. It's enough time, he said, more to himself than to her. Raphael, I'm going to fix this, Marina. I'm going to find a way to have it all. Be a good father and keep my company running. You'll see. Marina shook her head slowly. What if you can't? Raphael looked through the glass door into the apartment where Michael and Sophia slept in their small but loving rooms. Then he looked at Marina, the woman who had raised his children alone and who was now considering taking them away because she believed it would be better for them. Then at least I tried, he said. For the first time in my life, I really tried. The next day, Raphael arrived at the office determined to find a solution, but what he found was an extraordinary board meeting already in progress without his presence. Letitia looked up when he entered the meeting room. Raphael, good you arrived. We were just voting on your temporary replacement as executive president. Without my presence? You've missed so many meetings that we thought it best not to wait, Ferdinand said dryly. Raphael looked around the table. 6 faces he had known for years, people with whom he had built businesses, closed contracts, celebrated successes. Now everyone avoided his gaze. And what was the result of the vote? 5 votes in favor of my appointment as executive president, Letitia said. 1 vote against. Raphael didn't need to ask who had voted against. His own father was at the head of the table, his face a mask of disappointment. Dad. Oswald. Miller stood up slowly. Raphael, this company has been our family for 3 generations. I cannot allow it to be destroyed, not even by my son. So that's it? You're taking me out of my own company? Temporarily, Letitia said, until you resolve your personal problems. Raphael felt a cold anger rising up his spine. My personal problems are my children. Your grandchildren, he said, looking directly at his father. They are 2 children you didn't even know 4 months ago, Oswald replied, and they are causing more instability in your life than 2 wars and 3 economic crises. Because they are more important than wars and economic crises. The silence in the room was deafening. Raphael realized he had crossed a line he didn't know existed. For those people, nothing was more important than the company. Nothing. "I understand," he said finally. "You've made your decision." "Raphael," Letitia said, her voice slightly conciliatory, "you're still chairman of the board. You still have veto power over strategic decisions. You just won't have to deal with day-to-day operations." "How generous." Raphael turned to leave, but his father's voice stopped him. "Raphael." "Yes?" "You can still go back, establish more appropriate priorities." Raphael looked at the man who had been his hero all his life, who now suggested he abandon his own children again. "Dad, for the first time in my life, my priorities are exactly where they should be." And with those words, Raphael Miller walked out of the company he had helped build, not knowing if he would ever return. The worst part was that Marina was right about one thing. Now, he really would have to choose. And for the first time since he had reconnected with Michael and Sophia, Raphael wasn't sure how that choice would affect the children he was trying to protect. In the week following his forced departure from the executive presidency, Raphael found himself in completely unfamiliar territory: free time. For the first time in 15 years, he had no morning meetings, urgent phone calls, or critical decisions waiting for him. It was strange and liberating at the same time. He decided to use that time to be with Michael and Sophia. Marina, initially reluctant, allowed him to stay with the children during the day while she worked. "Only temporarily," she had said, "until you decide what you're going to do with your life." Raphael discovered that taking care of two two-year-olds full-time was more challenging than managing a multinational company. There were no coffee breaks, no predictable schedule, no business logic that could be applied when Sophia decided she didn't want to wear shoes, or when Michael had a meltdown because his cereal wasn't in the right bowl. But he also discovered something unexpected. He was genuinely happy. On Thursday morning, as he pushed a double stroller in Central Park, Raphael received a call from an unknown number. It was an elderly woman with an upstate New York accent. "Raphael Miller." "Yes, who is this?" "My name is Irene Sterling. I'm Marina's mother." Raphael stopped immediately in the middle of the path. Marina had never mentioned her mother would contact him. "Mrs. Sterling, how can I help you? I need to speak with you. Personally. It's about Marina and the children." "Has something happened?" "Can you meet me this afternoon? I'm in New York City, at Mount Sinai Hospital." Raphael's heart pounded. "Hospital? Is Marina okay?" "Marina is fine. Well, it's complicated. Can you come?" 2 hours later, Raphael was in the hospital waiting room, Michael and Sophia playing quietly with coloring. Books he had bought at the gift shop. A grey-haired woman approached. She was clearly Marina's mother. They had the same brown eyes and the same determination in their chins. "You must be Raphael," she said, sitting beside him. "Mrs. Sterling, how are you feeling?" "I'm dying," she said so directly that Raphael almost choked. "Pancreatic cancer. 3 months, maybe less." Raphael didn't know what to say. The children looked at the woman with innocent curiosity. "Hi, Grandma Irene," Sophia said cheerfully. "Hi, my love," Irene said, her voice immediately softer. She looked back at Raphael. "Marina doesn't know yet about the diagnosis. I came for tests here because I didn't want to worry her unnecessarily until I was sure. But she needs to know." "She does, and she will know. But first, I needed to talk to you." "About what?" Irene watched Michael trying to color a dinosaur drawing. "Marina told me about the job offer in Canada." Raphael felt his stomach tighten. "And?" "And she also told me she's considering accepting it because she thinks it would be better for the children." "And do you agree?" Irene laughed, but there was no humor in the laugh. "Raphael, Marina raised these children alone for 2 years. She worked pregnant until her 8th month, stayed in the hospital with premature babies with no one to support her, spent sleepless nights with sick children, lost work contracts because she had to take care of her children." Raphael felt the familiar guilt tighten his chest. "I know I failed." "I'm not finished talking," Irene interrupted him. "Marina did all that, and never, not once, spoke badly of you to these children. She never said you abandoned them. She always said Daddy was traveling for work or busy with important things." "Raphael, looked at Michael and Sophia, who were completely absorbed in their drawings. Why did she do that? Because Marina always believed that one day you would come back, that one day you would understand what really matters in life. And now? Irene leaned forward. Now she's scared. Of what? That you're only here out of guilt. That when the novelty wears off, when the responsibility gets too heavy, you'll leave again. Only this time, Michael and Sophia will know they were abandoned. The words hit Raphael like punches. He had considered many variables in his decision to prioritize fatherhood, but he hadn't thought deeply about Marina's fear. How do I prove to her that I won't leave? That's the wrong question, Irene said. The right question is, how do you prove it to yourself? Before Raphael could answer, Michael came running to them. Daddy, I finished my dinosaur. Want to see? Raphael picked the boy up, examining the drawing carefully. It's beautiful, champ. What kind of dinosaur is it? It's a Tyrannosaurus Rex, just like the one at the American Museum of Natural History you took me to. Raphael smiled, remembering the excursion to the American Museum of Natural History the previous week. It had been Michael's idea, and Raphael had cancelled a meeting with his lawyer to take him. Mrs. Sterling, he said, after Michael returned to his drawings, what do you suggest? That you stop trying to prove something and just live. If you really want to be a father, be a father. If you really love Marina, love Marina. Stop treating this like a business project that needs to be successful. What if I fail? Every father fails sometimes, Raphael. The difference is that some run away when they fail and others stay and try to get... Say it right next time. That afternoon, Raphael took Michael and Sophia back to Marina's apartment earlier than usual. She was in the kitchen, preparing dinner, and immediately noticed that something was different. Has something happened? She asked. Raphael looked at the children who had run to their rooms to put away the day's drawings. Your mother is in New York City. Marina stopped chopping vegetables. My mother? Why? She didn't tell me she was coming. Marina, you need to sit down. The expression on Raphael's face made Marina immediately drop the knife. She sat at the kitchen table, her hands trembling slightly. What happened? Raphael told her about the phone call, about the meeting at the hospital, about the diagnosis. He watched Marina's face gradually crumble, saw tears begin to form in her eyes. 3 months, she whispered. Maybe less. Marina covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Raphael approached hesitantly, not knowing if his presence would be welcome in such an intimate moment. Marina, my mother, she said through tears, is the only family I have. She was the one who helped me when Michael and Sophia were born. She was the one who came from Saratoga Springs every weekend to help me when I didn't know what to do anymore. Raphael knelt beside her chair. I'm so sorry. And now she's going to die, and I'm going to be completely alone with the children. You won't be alone. Marina looked at him with eyes red from crying. No? For how long, Raphael? Until you get tired of playing daddy? Until the next professional crisis? Marina, I'm not leaving. How can you be sure? You already left once. Raphael took a deep breath. Because the first time I ran from love. This time, I finally understood what love is. Marina studied him through her tears. And what is it? It's staying when it gets hard. It's choosing every day to be present. It's giving up what you always thought you wanted to discover what you really need. You gave up your company. I didn't give up. I changed my priorities. And you know what? The company can survive without me for a while. But Michael and Sophia can't grow up again. I can't get back the time I've already lost. Marina wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. What if your family doesn't accept this change? What if you become resentful? Then that will be my problem to solve, not the children's, not yours. At that moment, Michael and Sophia returned to the kitchen, clearly sensing the tension in the air. Mommy, why are you crying? Sophia asked, approaching Marina. Marina picked up her daughter. Mommy's a little sad today, love. Why? Marina looked at Raphael, then at Michael, who had also approached. Grandma Irene is sick. Can we visit her? Michael asked. Of course we can. And Daddy will come too, Sophia wanted to know. Marina looked at Raphael. If he wants to. I want to, Raphael said without hesitation. That night, after the children had gone to sleep, Raphael and Marina talked in the living room. She had given up on cooking, so they ordered pizza, something Raphael had never done at home before. Were you serious, Marina asked, about wanting to go with me to visit my mother? I was. Raphael, my family isn't like yours. My mother lives in a simple house in Saratoga Springs. My father died when I was 15. We don't have money or influence or anything that could interest someone like you. Marina, do you really think I care about those things? 3 months ago I would have said yes. Raphael considered this. And now? Now I don't know what to think. You've changed so much that sometimes I feel like I'm talking to a stranger. A good stranger or a bad one? Marina smiled for the first time that night. Good. Definitely good. But it's scary. Why? Because it was easier when you were the old Raphael. I could be angry, I could protect myself, I could make practical decisions without worrying about feelings. And now you're being exactly the man I fell in love with 7 years ago, only this time with 2 children and a much more complicated reality. Raphael moved closer to her on the sofa. Marina, do you still love me? The question caught her off guard. She studied him for a long moment, as if seeing him for the first time. I never stopped loving you, Raphael, as much as I wanted to, as much as I tried. Then why are you considering going to Canada? Because loving you doesn't mean I trust you. The painful honesty of the words hit Raphael in the chest. How do I win back your trust? I don't know if it's possible. Raphael took her hand. Let me try. Raphael, please, don't go to Canada. At least not now, with your mother sick. Let me try to prove that I've truly changed. Marina was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was low. Okay, I'll postpone my answer for Canada for now. But Raphael, if you disappoint me again, if you abandon the children again, I swear, this time I'll go so far away that you'll never find us again. I won't disappoint you. How can you be sure? Raphael looked around the cozy apartment, with children's drawings on the refrigerator and toys scattered on the floor. So different from his previous life, so much more real. Because for the first time in my life, I know what my true purpose is. The next morning, Raphael woke up on Marina's sofa. It had gotten too late to go home, and she had offered the sofa. It was Saturday, and he could hear the children waking up in their rooms. His phone rang early. It was Oswald. Raphael, we need to talk. About what, Dad? About your return to the company. Letitia is causing more problems than she's solving. The board wants you back. Raphael stood up, walking to the window not to wake anyone. And the conditions? You return as executive president, but with some limitations on working hours. Limitations? No work on weekends, no long trips without prior notice, and you have to hire an executive vice president to share the load. Raphael almost laughed at the irony. 3 months ago, these conditions would have sounded like punishment. Now they sounded like liberation. Why the change of opinion? Because without you, the company is losing contracts faster than with you divided between work and fatherhood. And Letitia, she will be reallocated to the international directorship. Raphael looked at the bedroom door where Michael and Sophia were still sleeping. Dad, I accept the proposal, but with an additional condition. What? I want Marina to be hired as a senior environmental consultant for the company, with a salary that is competitive with the Vancouver offer. There was a pause on the other side. Raphael. It's that or I don't come back. Okay, but she has to be truly qualified. She's more qualified than any other environmental consultant in New York. After he hung up, Raphael found Marina in the kitchen already making coffee. Was that work? It was. They offered me my position back. Marina stopped stirring the coffee. And you're going to accept? I am, but with conditions that allow me to be present in Michael and Sophia's lives. And do you think it can work? Dividing your attention between the company and the children? I'll find out. But Marina, I also negotiated something for you. What? Raphael told her about the consultancy offer. He saw surprise, then suspicion, then something that looked like hope cross her face. You did that without asking me? I did. And if you don't want it, you can refuse. But it would be a way for you to have a stable career in New York, with a salary that competes with Vancouver. Why did you do that? Raphael approached her. Because I want you to stay. Not out of obligation, not out of lack of choice, because you want to stay. Marina studied him carefully. What if it doesn't work out? What if we find we can't work together? Then we deal with it when it happens. But at least we tried. At that moment, Michael appeared in the kitchen in his pajamas, his hair messy from sleep. Daddy, did you sleep here? Yes, I did, champ. Why? Raphael looked at Marina, then back at Michael. Because sometimes people who love each other like to stay close to each other. Do you love each other? Michael asked with the direct curiosity of children. Raphael and Marina looked at each other. It was a simple question with a complex answer. Yes, Marina said finally. We love each other. Then are you going to get married again? Michael, Marina said softly, these things are complicated. No, they're not. Sophia appeared behind her brother. If you love each other, you get married, like in the movies. Raphael laughed, picking Sophia up. Life isn't like in the movies, princess. It should be, she said with the relentless logic of a 2-year-old. And looking at Marina in that sunny kitchen, with Michael clinging to his leg and Sophia in his arms, Raphael thought that maybe, just maybe, his daughter was right. Perhaps life should be simpler. Perhaps love was indeed just choosing to stay close to the people who matter. Perhaps he was finally learning what it truly meant to be happy. 6 months had passed since Raphael returned to the company's presidency under the new conditions. It was a Friday in December, and New York City buzzed with pre-Christmas energy. From his renovated office, now with photographs of Michael and Sophia on the desk and children's drawings taped to a side wall, Raphael watched Fifth Avenue through the panoramic windows. Life had found a new rhythm, different from anything he had ever experienced, but surprisingly satisfying. Marina had accepted the senior environmental consultant position and proved even more competent than Raphael had imagined. In 6 months, she had reformulated all the company's environmental protocols, saved millions in potential fines, and attracted 3 new sustainable contracts. Working with her daily had been a constant exercise in rediscovery. She was even more intelligent and determined than he remembered. But the most important thing was the routine they had built together. Raphael arrived at the office at 7:30, later than before, but early enough to resolve urgent matters. At 5 o'clock sharp, religiously, he left any meeting that was happening to pick up Michael and Sophia from school. They had dinner together at Marina's apartment. Sometimes he cooked, sometimes she did. Often they ordered delivery while helping the children with their basic age-appropriate homework. Weekends were sacred, no work, just family. Oswald, initially skeptical about the changes, had become a dedicated grandfather. Every Sunday he took Michael and Sophia to lunch at his mansion on the Upper East Side, telling stories about the Miller family and teaching his grandchildren to play chess. Although Michael, at 2.5, was more interested in knocking over the pieces. You have a visitor, Martha announced over the intercom. Who is it? It's Ms. Sterling. She says it's urgent. Raphael felt his stomach tighten. Marina never showed up at the office without warning, especially not calling something urgent. She entered the room with an expression he couldn't decipher, serious, but with a hint of contained excitement. She was holding an envelope in one hand. What happened? Raphael stood up immediately. I received a call from Saratoga Springs. Raphael's heart pounded. Mrs. Sterling had fought cancer in recent months, with a determination that impressed doctors. But everyone knew it was a battle with a defined SROC. Your mother? She's better, Marina said, a smile beginning to form. Raphael, she's better. What do you mean better? Marina approached, her eyes shining. The latest tests showed that the tumor has shrunk by 40%. The doctors can't fully explain it, But the experimental treatment worked better than anyone expected. Raphael felt pure relief coursing through his veins. Does that mean that she has more time? Maybe much more time. Marina took his hands. She wants to see us. She wants to get to know the son-in-law she's heard about for 6 months better. Raphael laughed, pulling Marina into a hug. When are we going? This weekend, if you can miss your Saturday meetings. Marina, I haven't had Saturday meetings in 6 months. I know, I was just checking if you really changed, she said, with a mischievous smile. On Saturday morning, Raphael drove on the New York State Thruway towards Saratoga Springs, Marina in the passenger seat, and Michael and Sophia chatting excitedly in the back seat about the grandma they were going to visit. It was the first trip they had taken together as a family, and Raphael was surprisingly nervous. What if your mother doesn't like me? He asked as they entered the town. She already likes you. How do you know? Because she sees how you treat Michael and Sophia, and how you treat me. Mrs. Sterling's house was in a quiet residential neighborhood with a well-kept garden and a porch with rocking chairs. It was small and simple, but it exuded the same warmth as Marina's apartment. Mrs. Sterling waited for them at the door, visibly thinner than last time, but with eyes bright with joy. Michael and Sophia ran to her immediately, and Raphael watched with emotion the reunion between grandmother and grandchildren. Raphael, Mrs. Sterling said after hugging the children, it's good to get to know you better. Mrs. Sterling, how are you feeling? Better, tired but better and eager to talk to you. Lunch was a revelation for Raphael. Mrs. Sterling had prepared a true homemade feast, chicken with okra, rice with piqui, a Brazilian fruit, let's keep it as is or replace with a generic regional dish. But piqui is distinct. Let's adapt it to grits and greens. Fried cassava, dulce de leche for dessert. It was simple food, but made with love, and Raphael didn't remember when he had eaten something so delicious. Marina told me, you've changed a lot, Mrs. Sterling said as she watched Raphael help Michael cut his chicken. I hope for the better. Without a doubt for the better. But tell me one thing. Don't you miss the old life? The power, the independence? Raphael considered the question honestly. Sometimes I miss the simplicity of business decisions, but I don't miss the loneliness. What if one day you get tired of this life? If the responsibility gets too heavy? Raphael looked at Marina, who was watching the conversation attentively. Mrs. Sterling, 6 months ago, I thought responsibility was managing profits and losses. Now I know that real responsibility is waking up every day, choosing to be present for the people you love. Mrs. Sterling smiled. And you make that choice every day? Every day? Even on difficult days? Raphael laughed. Especially on difficult days. After lunch, while Marina helped her mother in the kitchen and the children napped in the living room, Raphael went out to the porch. The view was of simple houses and tree-lined streets, so different from the urban landscape he was accustomed to. Marina joined him a few minutes later. What are you thinking about? How wise your mother is. She liked you. How do you know? Because she didn't ask any of her really difficult test questions. Raphael laughed. Those were the easy ones. Compared to what she can ask when she really wants to test someone, yes. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the slow movement of the street. It was a completely different pace of life. Slower, simpler. Marina, Raphael said eventually, can I ask you something? Of course. Have you ever thought about marrying me again? The question caught Marina off guard. She turned to look at him. Raphael, I'm not asking now. He hastened to clarify. I just want to know if it's something you would consider, eventually. Marina studied his face carefully. Why do you want to marry me? Because I want Michael and Sophia to have a complete family. Because I want to wake up every day in the same house as you. Because I love you, and this time I know what it means to truly love someone. And what does it mean? It means wanting the best for the person, even when it's inconvenient for you. It means choosing her every day, especially on the days when it's difficult. It means building a life together, not two parallel lives that sometimes meet. Marina was silent for a long moment. Raphael, I need a promise. What? If one day you wake up and realize you made a mistake, that your old life was better, that this responsibility is too heavy, promise me you'll talk to me before running away. Marina, I won't run away. Promise anyway? Raphael took her hands. I promise. Then yes, I would consider marrying you again. But not now. Not yet. When? Marina smiled. When I'm absolutely sure you're here to stay. When there's no doubt left. And how long will that take? As long as it takes. That night, in a simple but cozy inn in downtown Saratoga Springs, Raphael watched Marina helping Michael and Sophia brush their teeth in the small bathroom. There was something deeply comforting in that simple domestic scene. His phone rang. It was Letitia from the International Directorship. Raphael, sorry to bother you on the weekend, but we have a situation with the Argentina contract. Letitia, Raphael interrupted her, it's Sunday morning. Whatever it is, it can wait until Monday. But it's a $5 million situation. Monday, Letitia. He hung up and found Marina watching him. Important international contract? Apparently. And you're not going to deal with it now? No. Marina smiled. Raphael Miller leaving $5 million for Monday. $5 million isn't going anywhere. But this weekend with you all won't come back. On the way back to New York City on Sunday afternoon, the children fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted from 2 days playing in Grandma Irene's yard. Raphael drove in silence, Marina watching the landscape out the window. Raphael, she said eventually, can I tell you a secret? Of course. When you showed up that day at the office 7 months ago, I was so scared. Of what? That you would try to take the children from me, that you would use your money and influence to get custody. Raphael almost slammed on the brakes in surprise. Marina, that never crossed my mind. I know that now, but at the time it was my biggest fear. That's why I was so defensive. And when did you stop having that fear? Marina thought for a moment. The first time I saw you cancel a meeting to be with them when they were sick. That's when I realized you weren't trying to take the children from me. You were trying to become a part of their lives. And now? Do you still have fear? I have other fears. What are they? That it's too good to be true. That one day I'll wake up and find out it was all a dream. Raphael reached out to hold her hand. It's not a dream, Marina. It's real life. Our real life. In late February, on a sunny Saturday, Raphael was at the park with Michael and Sophia when his phone rang. It was Mrs. Sterling. Raphael, can you come here? I need to talk to you. Has something happened? Are you okay? I'm fine, but it's important, and come alone if possible. 2 hours later, Raphael was sitting on Mrs. Sterling's porch, drinking homemade coffee. She seemed more fragile than on his last visit, but her eyes held the same determination. Raphael, I'm going to die soon. Mrs. Sterling, let me finish. The doctors gave me a few more months, maybe less. And before I go, I need to have some important conversations. Raphael nodded, feeling a tightening in his chest. Marina doesn't know yet, and I don't want her to know until I decide when to tell her. But you need to know because I'm about to do something that could change everything. What? Mrs. Sterling slowly stood up and returned with a small blue velvet box. This was my grandmother's wedding ring. It has been passed down through the family for 4 generations. I saved it thinking of giving it to Marina when she truly got married. Raphael looked at the box, his heart pounding. She told me you talked about marriage, and I want you to know you have my blessing. More than that, I want you to propose to Marina before I die. Mrs. Sterling, Raphael, Marina loves you. She always has. But she's afraid to fully admit it, because there's still a small part of her that expects you to leave. And as long as she has that fear, you can't be completely happy. And how would marriage change that? Because it would be a public commitment, a declaration that you are truly building a life together. And because I want to die, knowing that my daughter will have someone who truly loves her taking care of her and my grandchildren. Raphael took the box, feeling the weight of the responsibility. What if she's not ready? She is ready, Raphael. She's just afraid to admit it. How do you know? Mrs. Sterling smiled. Because I've been her mother for 31 years. And because yesterday she called me crying saying she was afraid of being too happy, that something would go wrong. And what did you say? I told her to stop being afraid to be happy, that sometimes life just works out and there's nothing wrong with accepting that. Raphael opened the box. Inside was a delicate but elegant ring with a small but brilliant diamond set in white gold. It's simple, Mrs. Sterling said, but it was made with love, like everything that truly matters in life. Raphael knew the time had come, not because of Mrs. Sterling's pressure, but because he finally felt ready. He finally knew without any doubt that he wanted to spend the rest of his life with Marina and the children. Mrs. Sterling, can I ask a favor? Of course. I'd like you to be present when I propose. Mrs. Sterling's eyes filled with tears. I'd love that. The following week, Raphael carefully organized everything. He invited Mrs. Sterling to spend the weekend in New York City under the pretext of a medical appointment. He planned a special Sunday lunch at Marina's apartment, with Oswald and the grandchildren present. On Sunday morning, Marina woke up intrigued by the unusual activity. Raphael had shown up early to help with lunch. Her mother had arrived from Saratoga Springs for routine exams, and Oswald appeared at 11 with flowers and a mysterious smile. "What are you all up to?" she asked suspiciously as Raphael mysteriously offered to cook. "Nothing much," he said, barely containing his nervousness. "Just a family lunch." Michael and Sophia realized something special was happening and became agitated, running around the house and asking questions that no one answered directly. After lunch, when they were all gathered in the living room, Raphael stood up. "I'd like to say a few things." Marina looked at him with growing curiosity. 8 months ago, Raphael began, I was a man who thought he had everything in life. A successful company, professional recognition, total independence. But when Marina showed up in that office with Michael and Sophia, I realized I had nothing that truly matters. Marina was beginning to understand what was happening. Her hands trembled slightly. "In recent months, you taught me what it means to be family. You taught me that real success isn't what you build. It's who you share what you build with. You taught me that love isn't a feeling. It's a choice you make every day." Raphael knelt before Marina, taking the box from his pocket. Sophia let out a little shriek of excitement. Michael was fascinated by the ring's sparkle. "Marina Sterling, will you marry me? Not because it's convenient, not because we have children together, but because I love you and I want to spend the rest of my life proving it every day." Marina looked at the ring, then at Raphael, then at her mother, who was smiling through tears, then at Oswald, who nodded encouragingly, and finally at Michael and Sophia, who watched everything with childlike fascination. "Raphael," she said, her voice choked with emotion, "are you sure? Absolutely sure?" "I've never been so sure of anything in my life." "What if one day you wake up and regret it?" "I won't regret it, Marina, because I finally understood that you and the children are not a part of my life. You are my life." Marina extended her trembling hand. "Then yes, I want to marry you." Raphael slid the ring onto her finger, then kissed her as Michael and Sophia celebrated as if it were New Year's. Mrs. Sterling cried openly, and even Oswald discreetly wiped his eyes. "Now you're really getting married?" Michael asked, still trying to understand what had happened. "We're really getting married," Marina confirmed, laughing through her tears. "And are you going to have more babies?" Sophia wanted to know. Raphael and Marina looked at each other, laughing. "One thing at a time, princess." 6 months later, on a golden September afternoon, Raphael and Marina were married in the garden of Oswald's stately estate in the Hamptons. It was a simple but elegant ceremony, with only close family and a few intimate friends. Michael was the ring-bearer, carrying the rings on a small pillow which he treated with total seriousness. Sophia was the flower girl, scattering rose petals down the aisle with the enthusiasm of a 3-year-old. Mrs. Sterling was present, more fragile but radiant, sitting in the front row beside Oswald, who had become her companion. in conversations about their grandchildren. When it was time for the vows, Raphael held Marina's hands and said, "Marina, I promise to be present, on the easy days and on the difficult ones, when you're happy and when you're sad, when the children are well and when they're sick. I promise to choose our family every day, because you are my greatest achievement." Marina, with tears in her eyes, replied, "Raphael, I promise to trust you. I promise to believe that love can be simple, that sometimes life really works out. I promise to build a life with you where our children grow up knowing they are loved unconditionally." When the officiant declared them husband and wife again, Michael and Sophia ran to hug them, creating a moment of pure family joy that was photographed and became everyone's favorite image. At the reception that followed, Raphael watched Marina dancing with Sophia in her arms, Michael running among the guests, Mrs. Sterling chatting animatedly with old friends, Oswald telling stories of his grandchildren to anyone who would listen. It was exactly the life he had never imagined wanting. It was noisy, unpredictable, sometimes chaotic, but it was full of love in a way his previous life, however successful, had never been. Satisfied with your choice? Marina appeared beside him, still in her simple but elegant wedding dress. More than satisfied. Complete. Even knowing that tomorrow you'll have to wake up early to take Michael to the dentist? Raphael laughed, especially knowing that. 2 years later, on a Saturday morning, Raphael was in the kitchen of the new house they had bought in Scarsdale, large enough for the children to play, but cozy enough to feel like home, when Michael and Sophia ran into the living room. "Mommy, Daddy, come!" "See?" Sophia shouted. Raphael and Marina looked at each other with curiosity and went to investigate. In the living room, they found the children pointing at the television, where a commercial for Miller and Associates was playing. It was a reforestation project Marina had coordinated, and the camera showed children playing in a recovered green area. "It's our company," Michael said proudly. "Our company that takes care of trees," Sophia added. Raphael knelt beside his children. "It is our company, champs. And do you know why we take care of trees?" "Because trees are important," Michael replied, repeating what he had learned. "And because we have to take care of the planet for you and for your children," Raphael said, looking at Marina with love. "Are we going to have little brothers and sisters?" Sophia asked hopefully. Raphael and Marina laughed. Marina was 2 months pregnant, but they hadn't told Michael and Sophia yet. "What do you think?" Marina asked, her hand instinctively going to her still flat belly. The children cheered with joy, running to hug their mother. Raphael watched the scene with a heart full of gratitude for a life he had learned to value only when he almost lost it. That afternoon, after Michael and Sophia had gone to sleep, Raphael and Marina sat on the porch of their new house, watching the garden where the children had spent the day playing. "Do you regret anything?" Marina asked, her head resting on his shoulder. "Taking so long to understand what truly matters," Raphael replied honestly. "And now, how do you feel about the life we've built?" Raphael looked around the garden, where children's bicycles were scattered, where a treehouse he had built himself stood out against the starry sky, where the swing Oswald had installed for his grandchildren swayed gently in the night breeze. "I feel at home," he said. "For the first time in my life, I truly feel at home." And it was true. Raphael had discovered that success wasn't what you achieved, it was who you became in the process. He had discovered that love wasn't a feeling that happened to you, it was a choice you made every day. Most importantly, he had discovered that the most extraordinary life was, in fact, built from completely ordinary moments. Messy breakfasts, afternoons at the park, evenings helping with homework, weekends doing nothing but being together. It was a simple life, it was a real life. And it was exactly the life he had always needed, even when he didn't know he was looking for it.